Hi everyone, we'll get underway and I'll talk to you a little bit about some tips I've got for multiple ways to use Twitter in the classroom. Just a little bit of background on me. I'm Karen Bonanno, the founder and managing director of EduWebinar, and I've been involved in K-12 school sector for over 35 years. And I've been active in that social media environment, regularly sharing resources and tips and ideas, teaching strategies for how people can use Twitter, but also other tools within the classroom. So let's have a quick look. There is a general definition about Twitter, but the important part I want to look at is this bottom bit here, which is saying registered users can read and post tweets, but unregistered users can only read them. Now, within a school context, what we've got here is the ability to cope with the different age groups. So for those kids who are 13 years and over, yes, they can have a Twitter account in a legal situation, and they can then read and post and be involved in that. But for people who don't, then it could well be that you set up, as a teacher, you set up a classroom account, and the children can still go in and look at the particular tweets. So there are different ways that you can use Twitter to get kids to understand what the social media environment's about, what impact someone's digital footprint has, and so on and so forth. So it's well worth looking at that in regard to how you might use Twitter. The other aspect too is that we need to understand that Twitter is a growing environment. Let's say back in about 2013, or even earlier, there was around about 100 million less users. So right now, on these statistics that I could find, there is 645 plus million people who are active users of Twitter. You can see that the average number of tweets. The interesting thing again is the percentage of people who watch other people tweet. So they basically have an account, or they just go in and they look at what people are doing. The number of tweets per second. And we also need to know that Twitter is quite high up in the global rankings of sites in the world. There are different ways that you can use Twitter in a classroom environment. The first is in the context of how you might use it to grow your professional learning network environment. That's a crucial part. So what you can do, and this is an example of a particular school that has used Twitter as its professional learning tool, they have basically said, okay, let's use this as a way to keep us up to date as a staff about all sorts of things that are happening within the Twitter sphere. And so they have started to develop this tool, and they do things like a Twitter chat. They post questions each week around a particular theme, and then they engage in a Twitter flow of discussion about the particular topic. So in many ways, this is like a self-regulated learning tool for teachers to be involved in. They can meet, they can chat, they can discuss issues, they can share their expertise. And so here we have it as a teacher-driven professional learning network environment. They can share resources, they can share documents, web links, how-to resources that the students can use, all sorts of things that can happen here for how the teachers within this particular school example have been able to use the tools to engage themselves in discussions and also to build that professional learning network. And it can be that what happens is that they bring in other people from outside to be involved in that. Now, this is an example here of a conference environment where we see often people at conferences are sharing, and those who don't attend get the chance to see what the flow of conversation is. So it brings together the like-minded colleagues, it brings together people who are knowledgeable, who can share information, and you're communicating with your peers. And these people are kind of the eyewitnesses, and they're sharing the information. And of course here they're using a common hashtag for that particular conference to share that information. And if you were to go out to your Twitter account and have a look at the trends, you would find that hashtags are tracking those trends. And right now, from an Australian perspective, the cricket is huge between the match pending between Australia and New Zealand. So that's on the Twitter sphere. You've got other things as well, such as the boy band, one member's leaving. So that's trending. Now, all of these things may seem a little odd, but they can be used as teaching moments, and we'll get to that shortly. But what happens in an environment where you want to use it for your professional learning network, you can actually open your Twitter account, and then in the search field you can key in, as a teacher, some current initiative in teaching strategy. So in this case, I've just keyed in problem-based learning. And you might want to say, well, okay, let's have a look at what this is all about, because we want to see it in the context of project-based learning, inquiry-based learning, constructivist learning, Bloom's, Common Core standards. There's all sorts of things that we can look for and search for. Now, let's spin this another way, and we could say this is your classroom account. And it means that you can enter things in here and you can guide the students. So you might be putting in resources here that would be useful for them for a particular topic. So you can say to them, look, I want you to key in science here, and you'll see the resources that I've located that could be useful for you for the particular project. So it is a way to be used in conjunction with other tools, and we'll cover some of those right towards the end. But the big thing is, what you're able to do as a teacher is look at teaching strategies. Now, one example that was given in regard to this was one teacher actually got teaching ideas. So what he did, in the morning before the school started, he would key in a question and put it out into his Twitter space and get people to give some comments. And by morning tea, he would have different strategies that he could use throughout the day with his class, and also different ideas, a bank of resources that he could use. So he was using that as an effective way to continue to keep his classroom dynamic. This example here for teaching ideas is an Australian-based tag you can follow on Learning Frontiers, and this is through the Australian Institute of Teachers and School Leaders. And in there you will find, if you follow that tag, you'll get different ideas of how you can engage students in the learning process. The other thing you can do with Twitter is you can look at things like real-world events and use those as a moment to draw people's attention to certain things that are happening in the world. Now, we've got a little battery power here, just need to get that organised and then we'll keep going. Okay, back again. So here you can do your real-world events. And in this case here, this was a baby elephant that was born at Melbourne. And there's always animal stories there. There's always sporting, there's music, there's politics, whatever area of our lives, there's always something happening. And then often we find that Twitter picks things up and starts to broadcast those immediately out into the mass public sphere before anything else happens that we see on traditional media channels like newspaper and television. So what you can do in a teacher context is you can look at linking in with other experts. So there are different accounts there that you can see that there are people who are knowledgeable in certain content and subject areas. So if you're a geography teacher, you might say, well, this is great because I can look at the particular discussions around a subject area that I'm involved in, and you can get access to all sorts of resources and, again, ideas to implement into the classroom. The other thing that you can do is look at what's trending. And I mentioned this before, that what you have is a way of seeing what's happening around the world and using that as a discussion starter. For instance, you could be the teacher who has their morning assembly. So you've got a class before they go actually off into the school timetable for the day. And you could use this, say, once a week and say, well, okay, let's look at what's trending and what the impact is. Now, in this case, when I grabbed these, it was Christmas. There was the natural disaster in the Philippines. There was, we've got the governments, the heads of state, and the first selfie of them. And so that was trending. If we were to look, like if I were to go on to looking at Twitter, we've got trending right now the One Direction band, one member leaving. We've got we've got sport, we've got looks like a political issue at number 10, Downing. So we've got some other things happening there, Blair and Brown. What happens here is you're able to look at that, and those trends constantly change. So if we were to go back in another 5 minutes, the trends would change. And so you have to be prepared. We will get to what you need to do if something kind of pops up that it becomes a teachable moment. But in this area here, when we're looking at the different perspectives and points of view that people bring. So when people post on Twitter, they're often bringing their own position, their own frame of reference. So we can ask ourselves the what, when, and why of certain things. In this case here, this woman, Mary Barra, has been appointed as the new CEO for General Motors. Now, what we've got here is we've got different views on people's opinions about that. This person's out there supporting it, considers that it's an amazing move. This one's giving a little bit of background of saying, well, okay, this person has been in the industry for a while. She has moved into the job. She's made a significant contribution. And this one here continues to support that, saying stud on the factory floor. And now she is CEO. So we could look at any tracking of a particular event and say, well, what is it that people are saying? When are these comments being made? Why are they being made? And use it as a discussion to look at general issues around a number of different topics, particularly if you're looking at sort of the social science, humanities, those subject areas. The other thing you can do is you can tap into the current events, and there, of course, are radio stations, television stations, major organisations that contribute to lots of details on current topics. So apart from the media, we can look at things like, climate change and global warming, and look at the news and the science and all the solutions. You can look at the National Geographic. So in this case, National Geographic claims that, since 1888, they've travelled the earth and they've shared its amazing stories with every generation. There are ways that you can keep up to date with various events and bring them to the attention of your students to look at, how you will discuss that. Then what you can do, if you're not wanting to actually use Twitter to interact with your classroom, you as a teacher can still use Twitter to capture the resources and the ideas and information that is quite useful for how you might use it within your classroom. And this means that you're involved in this digital curation. You are filtering the information that you're going to share with others, with your students. So in this case, here you've got a lot of different curation tools. C.R.A.P sits very high in the general rankings. It's not just education that's using C.R.A.P, but there are industry people using C.R.A.P. Then you've got others as well, Live Binder Peltry, Storify, all those sorts of things. And if you really want to become overwhelmed by it all, you can take this link here and look at 55 content curation tools. There are multiple numbers out there. And you might want to just even use Twitter as a way of saying, well, what are people using? What people using out there as a curation tool in education? And that's the beauty of Twitter. You will get lots of feedback, and you will get kind of an immediate response. Now, this is the interesting part, because often people say, oh, I don't want to expose my kids to social media because of some of the things that are posted there. And so the question is, what to do with the odd ones? Well, this is when it becomes a moment to start to introduce to students the importance of their digital literacy skills. This definition here, I think, captures it in a nutshell. And it's saying that digital literacy is the skills, knowledge, and understanding that enables critical, creative, discerning, and safe practices when engaging with digital technologies in all areas of life. And over here, this is a screen capture from this particular site looking at the C.R.A.P test, which is looking at currency, reliability, authority, purpose, and point of view. So let's have a closer look at what we might mean by that. In any environment, doesn't necessarily have to be in Twitter or the social media environment. It can be in any environment where we are receiving information and we're saying, well, what needs to be made sense of here? So the essence of currency, how recent is this information? Is it current enough for the topic? And so that's looking at the currency. And this starts to bring in the need for when students find one piece of information, they need to look at how they might cross-check that in other environments to see, well, what else is out there in that context. Then the reliability. What information is included? Is there kind of an opinion here? Is it a balanced supply of information, or is it tending to be a little bit one-sided? Does the person provide references or sources of data, or is it just their personal point of view? And really, this moves us into the next section about authority. Who is the author? Is there a way that we can do a bit of a check to see who this person is, to find out, do they have some level of authority for making the statements that they're making? Is this a sponsored post, or is this person publishing under like an organisation, an educational organisation or a science organisation, a university? What is their reputation here? And is it pushing a particular point of view, which brings us into the bottom point here about purpose and point of view. And this is where students really start to learn how to be discerning of the information that they receive. Is this fact? Is it opinion? Is it biased? Is the person trying to kind of push something at us or trying to sell us something? So this is quite helpful for any information environment that you're in, is applying that particular C.R.A.P test. Then we get on to use of hashtags, because this is quite a unique feature within the social media environment. It's very obvious. I often see at conferences or seminars or events that there is a hashtag that's used, and this again becomes those people who are eyewitnesses to the event sharing with those who are in essence invisible participants and virtual participants in the process. So here are some different things that we can look at here, that you can use hashtags to assist in focusing the interest onto a particular content area, or it could be into a particular research component. You can also use it to help to, I've said here, aggregate the discussion. And it means that if there is a thread, for instance, the example I gave of the school that gives some questions and the teachers then respond to those and exchange information, then that tag would help to aggregate that discussion into a space where you can read it without the interference of all the other messages that come in, or the other posts that come in. Then you could use it as a class messaging system to get information out there. And it is a way that then, to a certain extent, you have a way of parents being able to see what's happening as well, because you could let the parents know this is the class Twitter account and this is what you'll find there. The online discussion is important, and particularly when you are in the 13 years and over, where you can use Twitter to get the students involved in online discussion, that it allows that collaboration, that sharing of ideas. And then in other ways, whether it be staff or students, you can look at getting some general collection of the point of view on a particular topic, or their opinion on maybe a real world issue. I mean, there's different ways that you can use it, and using a hashtag to be able to do that. Now, the tips that I've put there as well are important, because often I will see some hashtags are just so long. Remember, you've only got 140 characters. And if you have a very long hashtag, then it tends to take away, because people are going, oh, have I typed in this correctly, or have I captured this correctly? So keep it brief, because it is a tag that's helping people. It's like a signpost, helping people to get there. Create them early. So if you're trying to build the buzz around a topic, or let's say you're trying to build the buzz around a event, then look at scheduling things early. Don't just do it at the time that you want the students to engage. Start to populate the environment so that when they do come in, they will see that there's already information there that they can follow. And then keep them going. I often see that people will do things and then they never post again for months. I think once you get into these spaces, you need to maintain the momentum, because remember that you're also modelling this to students as well. But you can be strategic so that you can engage with others. You can send out reminders, events, information about assignments, any announcements that need to be made for the class. And also you could use it to document class learning. So you're informing parents and helping them to be involved in what is happening within their child's classroom. So this is just a brief overview for using Twitter within the classroom. And at EduWebinar, we have lots of great webinars on different topics that look at the integration of technology, looking at the implementation of curriculum, and looking at different teaching strategies and access to resources to support the curriculum. So pop over and pay us a visit at that link, and it would be great if we can see you online at one of our live events at EduWebinar.